The Chancellor, Philip Hammond, has written to the Office of Tax Simplification about reviewing inheritance tax. And I think it's worth quoting from his letter, which I have a copy of here. He said, "I'm writing to acknowledge the OTS's recent interest in the inheritance tax regime. Inheritance tax and the system within it operates is particularly complex, and I would like to request that the OTS carry out a review into the IHT regime. I would be most interested to hear any proposals that you may have for a simplification to ensure that the system is fit for purpose and makes the experience of those who interact with it as smooth as possible. The review should include a focus on the technical and administrative issues within inheritance tax, such as the process of submitting returns and paying any tax due, as well as practical issues around routine estate planning and disclosure. So far so good, predominantly an administrative review." They were my words, not his. More importantly, I think, and interestingly, it could also look, it being the OTS, it could also look at how current gift rules interact with the wider IHT system and whether the current framework causes any distortions to taxpayers' decisions surrounding transfers, investments and other relevant transactions. I look forward to agreeing the detail, not me, the Chancellor, of the terms of reference in the coming weeks. So no firm dates given for when the OTS should revert to Philip Hammond, and certainly not a formal consultation process announced just yet. There is, however, some history of the OTS having a look at inheritance tax. Just after they were first formed in 2011, they had a look at the system of tax relief generally. And in relation to inheritance tax, they quoted from the Merleys report, which was issued a little bit before theirs. And I'm going to quote from that again, so I'm full of props in this little video. The Merleys report, rather disparagingly, called inheritance tax a somewhat half-hearted tax with many loopholes and opportunities for avoidance through careful tax organisation of affairs. Now, the IHT section of the OTS review concluded that on the basis, this is the one in 2011, on the basis of the low numbers of estates caught by inheritance tax and the useful but relatively low revenues after reliefs that it raises, we consider that a more appropriate approach may be to review the whole of inheritance tax. So they said this in 2011, rather than consider individual IHT reliefs. Such a review may also encompass a review of capital gain tax, and we envisage this as a longer term project. So where are we now? Well, where we are now, we have to take into account the fact in 2015, another bit of history, the OTS had a look at, well, they actually created a tax complexity index, and inheritance tax came in the kind of Champions League of complexity index places at number 3. So they got in the top 4, and that, as all Gooners out there will know, counts as a trophy. So very, very complex, which has been made even more complex, the tax, because since then we've had the introduction of the much maligned, but it nevertheless exists, the residence nil rate ban, which is an incredibly complex provision, given its relatively simple objective. So what can we expect from all of this? Well, we don't really know. Certainly a review of the administrative process, but given that last part of the Chancellor's letter that I read out, we couldn't rule out a much wider review. Will the tax be completely abolished? I wouldn't have thought so, absolutely not. It's yielding about 5.7 billion, so that seems highly unlikely. But a wider review than merely looking at the administrative provisions of inheritance tax couldn't be ruled out, given what I've just said, basically, referring to what's already been said in the past. So we'll be keeping a track of this, of course. It's one of our favourite subjects in the TechLink bulletins, and hopefully you will too by going to www.techlink.co.uk, you know where it is, and having a look at those bulletins as they are published.